Hello and good morning everyone, and thank you for joining our VMware webinar today. So we are joined here by John Ryan from VMware, who will be going through the webinar with you all. And we also are joined by Jonathan Med from Extranet, who will be discussing a real-world experience of implementing the vRealize suite with you. And we also have John Wilkins, our virtualization specialist.
Morning everyone. The first of the three Johns on this morning. Okay, we're a premier partner with VMware, and it's the highest level of accreditation that they offer, so we're quite privileged in that. We have a dedicated team of in-house VMware licensing specialists, and that team is always growing as we expand the business out. We can help you with VOAs, which are virtualization optimization assessments, basically making sure you're getting the most from your environment, seeing what capacity there is for expansion and if there are any compliance risks, etc., etc. So if you want to find out more about that, please get in touch. We can also do design and implementation of new virtual environments, migrations and upgrades, for example, to version 6. Extranet are our leading technical partner in this area. They've got the highest number of experts in the world outside of VMware and EMC, and they're doing a lot of work in this area, and you're going to hear from them later on about a real-world reference. A&O is a hot topic for many of our VMware customers, and we know that they want to hear more about the tools that can help them achieve all the benefits of it. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand you over to John.
Thanks very much, John. Thanks for joining us this morning, guys. We're basically going to be looking at a number of different tools from VMware this morning, just in relation to, I guess, automation and some of the wider management side of the portfolio. So this is probably a technology area that most people might not associate with VMware. Most people kind of say, oh, VMware, they do hypervisor stuff, but really we're expanding well beyond that. And the scope of what we're covering this morning really kind of shows that in a little bit more detail. So what we're going to try and do over the next 30 to 35 minutes is cover off some of the key tooling that we think the data center of the future, or our vision for the software-defined data center, is really going to need to make all of the various different components in that data center work well together. So just a quick quote from the Gartner CIO survey is that basically the IT organization is becoming fundamental to how we run our businesses. Lots of people say if you're in business these days, you're in the IT business. And as part of that, we essentially need to make sure that we streamline the operations of IT to make sure that they fall in line with business demands. And it's really, I guess, what this quote is trying to get across. We need to make sure that we're able to put the tooling in place to allow IT to deliver what the business needs. And we're seeing even more and more these days that business agility is becoming a competitive advantage, especially in the areas of IT, whether it's rolling out new services internally to allow your business to do work more effectively, or if you're providing an external service, your ability to get that external service up and running as quickly as possible is key to your competitiveness as well. And I think this is being probably emphasized even more and more as we start to come into this kind of cloud era, where it's very, very easy to get our hands on resources. So be that resources from external public clouds, or be it resources that we've virtualized in our data center using VMware technology or others, to actually make the hardware that we buy really flexible, agile, keep the applications that run on it very efficient and highly available. But a key thing, I suppose, is that IT's job today is a little bit harder because that business expectation is there to deliver IT, in the same way that people are consuming IT at home. So if you have your iPhone or your Android phone, it's automatically backed up into the cloud. If you want an application, you go to the App Store and you basically just download it. And people are coming into businesses and they're coming to IT with those levels of expectation. So in IT, we've got to kind of meet that challenge, and we've got to be able to try and deliver on what the business needs. So what we are doing at VMware is trying to enable IT to deliver on those business expectations by providing the tooling that will essentially get your virtualized infrastructure and allow you to automate and orchestrate it in a more kind of flexible way to deliver things like management across your physical and virtual estate, being able to leverage cloud resources if you want to, and being able to automate a lot of tasks, but also being able to make sure that you keep an eye on everything that's going on from an operational perspective, performance, capacity, optimization, but also then keeping an eye on costings. So this is a big area as well of interest with our customers, because when you move into this area where you can get resources from the cloud or from internal virtual infrastructure or from elsewhere, where are the costings? Who gets billed? What's the actual cost of all of this? So what we're going to look at today is a number of various different solutions that address those. But first, just to give you guys an idea of what we're seeing as kind of the way forward for a lot of these kind of internal data centers and putting together the resources so that we can work with them in a more flexible way. Just a quick overview of the whole idea of software-defined data center. I think a lot of people are familiar with that term now, but essentially what we're talking about here is taking your physical infrastructure and mirroring what VMware have done over the last 10, 15 years with compute, and doing that to network and storage as well. So virtualizing your network and storage, essentially to try and provide a better platform for your applications. So that virtualized infrastructure then becomes very flexible. It allows us to do things that we could never do with physical. Being able to provision on the fly when we need to. We can allow people to go in and carve up different parts of that virtual infrastructure for whatever they need at that time. Present that even in a self-service portal, which we'll take a little bit of a look at later on. But that flexibility of infrastructure also gives us the capability to present infrastructure that might not be sitting inside in our own data center. So being able to leverage some of the benefits around elasticity, expansion, pay-as-you-go that public cloud offers for certain workloads. But being able to do that in a way that's fully under the control of IT, rather than somebody on the business side taking a credit card and going off to a service provider and basically standing up workloads that might not meet corporate compliance. The data, you don't really know where it is. Where's the cost control? All of these different things. Being able to put a layer of tooling on top of that across automation, operations, and business that spans not only you can actually determine what information we kind of want to present to the user when we present them with a choice for self-service. We can show them what the infrastructure might cost when we actually roll it out onto whichever infrastructure we want to. And so just to kind of get a little bit more granular and give you an idea of what each of these various different automation, business, and operations things do. We're essentially talking about three individual solutions, but they're tightly integrated when we actually put the whole management platform together. So when we talk about automation, what are we really talking about? I think what we're really talking about is trying to make some of those day-to-day operations that we spend a lot of time maybe doing manually, trying to kind of integrate them into an automated workflow. So, for example, in a lot of cases, we're using technology like our network virtualization to allow network administrators spend more time on security policy, on network configuration, architectures, than actually going out and changing firewall rules all day long. Or we're allowing virtualization admins the ability to kind of, build better availability, better I suppose, templates, more efficient, making their environment more efficient than actually going in and trying to carve up the virtual environment when somebody comes along and opens a ticket for a new VM. We want to kind of try and make that stuff kind of easy to do, and we'll do that through the cloud automation platform through things like self-service, to things like a limited amount of control for the end user. So, for example, in development environments, those users actually tend to want more control. So we can give them, the ability to consume a blueprint, a predefined IT template of a service or an application stack. They can restart that. They can power it on, power it off, for however long they have a lease on that particular application stack. And then when they're finished their testing or their development, they can just basically retire it, and that resource that they would have traditionally maybe left running for months and everybody forgot about it actually gets pulled back into the system and is available for everybody else. And also the transition then from between production environments, test environments, even when you're making infrastructure changes or upgrades, it can be done an awful lot more easily if we have a standardized automation system in place to do that. So what does what does that look like to the end user? Well, it looks a lot like what the picture on the left looks like. It's kind of like an app store, essentially, for whatever the user wants to consume, be that a standard simple VM, or be that a full complicated 3-tier architecture that they want to use for testing a new version of an application that they're writing, for example. So really trying to make it very easy for people to consume infrastructure, but doing it in a very controlled way. So depending on, again, who you are and what your level of entitlement is and what your requirement is, you will be presented with the right screen at the right time. So you can customize service catalogs for different users or groups of users, but also then give them varying different levels of personalization or configuration ability on those particular workloads that they roll out. And the great thing about that as well is that we can integrate information then from the other parts of the management stack to those systems, so we can present them with the ability to see how healthy their workload is when it's running on the environment. Is that application or that code change that they're testing having a really negative impact on the underlying infrastructure, or does it look okay? We can also present cost as well to the end user when they actually are rolling out that workload. So, for example, that might make a developer say, do I want to use my enterprise class storage, my best-in-class compute that I have inside in my own on-premises data center, or is this something I could just spin up maybe on a vCloud Air external public cloud just to test for a day and then shut it down and not have to use up that really expensive resource that I have internally on something that's really kind of just a test. So those kind of decisions can then be made by the user with full visibility on the impact of what that's going to have. On the IT side, then, you can see here that we've essentially got full visibility then on things like the costing of the infrastructure. So everything from what the server hardware cost is, and that's based on actually a discovery mechanism and a benchmark mechanism where we actually have a huge database of infrastructure costs and resource costs that we can then relay into the system and provide some indication of how you should be costing your infrastructure. So it's not finger in the air stuff. It's fairly sane when we do those calculations, but also then work out where the costs are in my data center. Is it based, is my CPU my cost? Do I need to start thinking about buying more CPU heavy boxes rather than RAM heavy boxes, for example? And you'll also be able to figure out who's using the resources as well. So being able to see, is it the developers using all of my infrastructure? Is it, production stuff? Is it, is it business applications that are actually putting the costing there, and really kind of working out, where that business allocation is in the environment. And, in a lot of instances, people say, okay, look, this is fine for new applications if I'm writing them, but, what about the stuff I have already? So this approach can actually enhance, traditional applications as well that we have running in our environment, because, every so often we are going to have to roll out a change to systems, for example. We're going to have to, test them, make sure that they all work, and that they might go through various different levels of staging. So a big challenge with that is that old one of, everything worked when we were testing it, but when we rolled it out into production, something went wrong, and we don't quite know what went wrong, and really that happens is because most of the time your environments that you're testing across may not be identical across all of those environments. With this type of automated, blueprinted and templated approach, you can actually ensure that you have the exact same environment at every stage of the testing process, and you can get through those upgrades or those tests much quicker across the various different tests that you might be doing. So this is something that we're seeing a lot of interest in as well. And of course, we're iterating on this technology very quickly, and we're essentially getting new versions every 6 months or so. Some of the things that we're integrating now as well are things like working with vSphere 6, our new version of vSphere, where things like integration with OpenStack technology, which is something that we're seeing some customers investigating. But again, if you want to be able to manage the modern data center, you need to be able to manage everything in there. So we're building that in too, and of course integration with VMware's own cloud offering, vCloud Air as well. So having that ability to touch all of those different things is key, and we're going to keep on enhancing that over time. So I just want to quickly also cover briefly the two other areas before we kind of look at how everything comes together. The operations side of things is key. And when I talk about operations, think of this as your traditional kind of monitoring platform, but with an awful lot more detail. So as I said earlier, a key part of that automation process is having as much valuable information as possible at hand to make really good decisions about how I put together my templates or my blueprints, or how do I actually keep control over costs or ensure really good performance and availability for applications. And a key one to that is having that visibility on the infrastructure. So with our operations platform, vRealize Operations, we go down into the detail of our infrastructure. So fundamentally, we look at vSphere. So we plug into vCenter directly. We gather all of the statistics that vCenter has. We put them through an analytics engine, and that analytics engine will then allow us to make really good decisions or present us with information that's really relevant to my infrastructure. So for example, it will alert me to performance issues or issues with my infrastructure, or it will even recommend maybe changes to the configuration if there's things like if I don't have load balancing on or NIC teaming turned on my network side of things. It might make a recommendation that for better availability it would be a good idea to turn this on. But it will also then use that analyzed data set to do things like capacity planning. So being able to tell me, do I have enough space to roll out a new workload, or do I need to think about maybe upgrading my storage in a couple of months? Being able to get that information is key. And also probably one of the key things that we can do with this technology as well is we can really optimize the environment. So John mentioned the vSphere optimization assessment earlier on that Bytes provides. Well, that leverages this tool very heavily from gathering the information and actually giving you real deep insight into what's going on in your virtual environment and where can you make efficiencies around maybe right-sizing virtual machines, making sure that virtual machines have the resources they need, or don't get over-provisioned, which is something that can happen in environments as well. So again, this kind of visibility on the operations side is key. And as I said, we'll take everything in the environment, not just that core vCenter data. So we can pull information in from the logs that might exist across your network, your storage, your compute, and we'll pull all of that information in via our log insight capability. We'll leverage that alongside the vCenter information and other information to do things like capacity planning. So again, giving me visibility on when and where I might need to upgrade my infrastructure, or where I might actually have to make decisions around, maybe load balancing my infrastructure a little bit, moving certain VMs off certain hosts or clusters. or even right-sizing those clusters for the VMs that they're dealing with. And again, presenting that in a way that actually it can be actioned upon, or can it be seen easily at a high level. So this is just an example of a dashboard that will present you with all of that relevant information in one place. So the health of the environment, looking at capacity and risk in the environment and compliance within the environment, and also then how efficient my environment actually is. So that cloud operations part, very, very key to the overall management and automation side of things too. And then finally, I suppose in those three pillars, cloud business, we touched on this already, but this is really around getting that cost control in place. So being able to see where am I spending my money, how am I spending my money, who is spending my money across all these various different IT resources that I have. And again, this is a pain point for most organizations that we talk to really be able to see, huge investment in IT, and seeing even more investment come in now from the business side of things as business starts to realize IT is a real driver for business advancement. But the business also wants to be able to see, where's their money being spent. So again, this tool is going to be able to break down all of those various different costs across the actual infrastructure, across the individual components of the infrastructure, and then across the various different business units that might be consuming out of that infrastructure pool. And really, I guess, this kind of lines up alongside that operations, that where operations looks at those technical metrics. This really looks at those costing metrics and uses this, pretty much the same data set of kind of the CPU cycles and all of the kind of VM capabilities, but kind of uses that to meter rather than actually monitor the environment. And the key thing, this is really important to be able to not only do things from an IT perspective and keep control in the IT department, but you can expand this out, as I said, to actually, look at things like, how does IT fit into the overall financial model of the business? Is there kind of various different ways that we can kind of show, the benefit to the bottom line of the business of being able to run out a service quicker, or being able to give users their workloads wherever they need them in a kind of a mobility strategy as well. So again, being able to see all of that is very, very interesting to not only IT but also the wider business too. And this is really, I suppose, a little bit of a crossover product where we start to see that the business side of things really kind of coming into IT and being able to leverage IT properly. So again, as I said with the other products, we're constantly advancing these products and insofar as being able to pull in information from different systems. We've got full integration with our own tools. We're also integrating with other third-party tools as well, like EMC's SRM. Which is their storage resource manager, to be able to kind of pull in detailed, information around storage costs as well, because some of those metrics might be a little bit more granular than what we might have, through that virtualized abstracted layer. So again, just constant advancement here, and again, having that cost control is a key part of the overall automation story. So really, when we tie all of these things together, what we're talking about really is this kind of circle of execution. So in order to have really good automation, we need to have really good operations in order to make those really good operations and automation kind of show the business benefit back. We need to have that cost control, and all of these things work together in tandem in this cloud management platform to really give us a huge amount of information, but also an awful lot more control over the resources that we have in the environment. So being able to show those costs up front, if I decide to roll out this set of virtual machines, what is that going to cost the business? Being able to surface that inside in the tool that the users are using, being able to actually see where I can make some optimization within the environment. So rather than you know, just having VMs sitting there idle and doing nothing, I can go out and figure out which VMs are busy, which VMs are quiet. Can I move some quiet VMs onto the same hosts and get more density? Can I power off certain VMs that are just doing nothing? The project might be finished and somebody just left it running there. So again, that's going to allow me to get a bigger return of investment on the infrastructure that I've purchased, and probably maybe even a longer life cycle or a purchase cycle out of that. And then being able to integrate all of that visibility as well. So being able to show people kind of the cost and the operational performance of a VM that they've consumed via self-service. So really kind of that the holistic approach to resource management as well. So really, I guess, the last thing to cover off from this perspective, you know, and we will have a look at some of the tools later on during the demo, but just to kind of cover off that this isn't something that VMware are doing as a hobby. We're actually doing this in a very, very large way. We're really getting out there and we you know, have an awful lot of installations now where, you know, traditionally you would have seen, you know, those big management vendors, the IBMs, you know, the BMCs and stuff like that. We're kind of really up in that space insofar as the capability of that solution. You know, I guess insofar as from a technology perspective, I guess what you've seen as well is that we're constantly advancing this technology to work with the newest areas like containers, you know, all of this kind of continuous integration and continuous deployment technology, you know, OpenStack, the cloud. All of these different technologies are being integrated all the time at a very rapid pace. So, you know, setting out your stall with this particular platform is kind of, you know, I suppose it's a good path to go down, because the platform is going to evolve with the way that you want to run your business as well. We have, of course, you know, a lot of partners on the technology side that integrate into all of these solutions as well, and we have something called the Solutions Exchange. But on the right, you can see just an example of all the major vendors who have different solutions that plug into the automation side of things as well as the operations side of things, and these guys will enrich the data that we have even more, and this again allows us just to make better decisions around the right templates, the right kind of performance levels, the right loads, the right sizing, to really let your environment perform very, very well, and give you a lot more control over it too. And then the last thing I think just to put up on the screen insofar as, you know, where are we in this space? You can see here that, you know, insofar as cloud management platforms of managing virtual, physical, and cloud systems, we are actually, you know, right up there insofar as various different vendors that are actually in this space. So again, this IDC study kind of puts us out ahead of those traditional, you know, I suppose vendors who would have kind of had this overarching management solution before. And just the last slide, I always put this one in, but just a few figures in relation to a couple of different case studies from things like people like Apollo Group, Medtronic, Telefonica, etc., and then, you know, various different customer feedback that we've had across, you know, those the various different markets where we're deploying these solutions. So with that, I think I'm just about maybe on time. So I will hand back to Sarah, I think at this point. So
thanks, John. Okay, so
yeah, no problem.
From here, if I just change it back to myself. I'm now going to pass you all over to Jonathan Med from Extranet.
Thank you, John, as well for all that information. I'm just going to give you a bit of a flavour of working on automation-based projects. Myself and other colleagues from Extranet have worked on a number of projects using the vRealize suite, and can hopefully give you a bit of a flavour of what kind of things you're likely to expect. Could we go into the first slide, please? Thank you. So first of all, the challenges, these products are quite mature now, particularly things like Orchestrator has been around for a long time. And the challenges we tend to see are typically not so much technical, but more likely challenges within the business itself with processes and sometimes people. These projects tend to impact not just maybe if you've come from a sysadmin background, the areas you're traditionally used to working in, but we're going to be impacting on networking and storage teams, on applications, operating systems, all kinds of things like that, depending on what we're trying to automate. So those guys that maybe in networking and storage you have only ever go to when there's a problem, it might be time now to try making some friends in those teams before you start needing to go and talk to them about automating some of the things they do. And this may be because, depending on what your own organization is like, sometimes some of the other parts of the business are not necessarily so open to automation as you might be. The typical things that we see are things like, you've probably heard this, but we've already always done something in a certain way, so why would we want to change it? And quite a common one can be, are you trying to automate me out of a job? And this naturally can, people can be a little bit fearful of automation. There may be things they've worked on for years, which suddenly someone's coming along saying, we're going to automate this, and can make them think, what am I going to be doing once you've done that? So we try and have conversations around what things would you actually like to be doing, and hopefully do those rather than these kind of boring, laborious tasks of maybe deploying the same virtual machines over and over again, working through build documents, things that computers really are much better doing than humans. Another challenge that we come across, and something which is really, really important, we find, is once you have identified what it is you're trying to automate, breaking those down into manageable items that maybe you want to present to people. So things like deploying a VM, removing a VM, adding storage to a VM, these catalog item type of things, breaking those down, and then getting everyone into a room who those things impact across the business, and just working through what are the processes that need to happen to automate things, and go through this process to identify your requirements. And we find it is really, really key to get those down in as much detail as possible. So for instance, maybe when you're deploying a virtual machine, you need to update particular databases or help desk systems, CMDB databases. Finding those out right at the beginning of this journey, but not just at a high level of, say, database X needs to be updated when a virtual machine is deployed, but really getting down into the details of those, of which tables in that database, which columns in the table, and where's the information going to come from to populate those. And those kind of conversations and answers to those questions can often take quite a long time to get the correct answers and find the right person in the organization who actually knows that answer. So these are the things that we really need to do a lot of preparation for these kind of projects. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So once you've gone through that process and planned everything out of what you're going to automate, and actually got some automation up with these, with the vRealize suite, there are some things that can be really, really successful and make quite a difference to your organization. So the classic example is the one around virtual machines. and that's a big part of what the vRealize automation product can do for you. And we've seen some slides earlier from John that the key thing is reducing the time it takes to deploy a virtual machine, and not just actually deploying the VM itself, but everything that goes around provisioning a VM into the environment. So we've all been through a thing that right-clicking a template and deploying from that maybe takes minutes, but it's all the other things around that that can take time, such as it needs to be added to a CMDB system, various logging and monitoring systems are built around these environments. We need to get it into configuration management systems so that the right software is deployed onto it, these kind of things. And we can bring all those processes into our automation and have that all done for us and make it available as a self-service item for your users, so we can reduce both the time it takes for those things to happen and the pauses that sometimes occur. Maybe you have to wait a few days between each phase. If we can automate those, we can reduce the time, and we can reduce the mistakes that often happen. So if you've got someone working through a build document, maybe that mistakes can creep in, and so we can really increase the consistency in which these things are created and removed as well. Other successes we've seen on these products is extending out from not just virtual machine deployment options, but also being able to offer networking services around these. So John didn't specifically mention, but also products like NSX, there's a lot of integration there. So we can offer as items firewall rules and load balancers. So you, at the same time as requesting a virtual machine, maybe you can also request that it is joined to a particular load balancer, or particular firewall rules are created for it, and those can be done automatically rather than having to go to a separate team after you've got hold of your VMs. And with the integration between Orchestrator and vRealize automation, we can offer potentially anything as a service also like that. So if there's something that can be automated within your environment, these can be offered as catalog items as well. So common ones we see around this are new starters. If you've got a new starter in your organization, they've usually got to be added to a multitude of systems, which takes time. I know from my own experience, when you join a new company, it's never the case that everything's ready for you on your first day, but we can really, using this system, maybe speed those kind of things up. So we can integrate with Active Directory or HR systems, telephone systems, and have that added as a catalog item that someone can request, and those things are done for them. And pretty much any other examples you can think of along those lines, like provisioning storage services, maybe giving people the opportunity to manage distribution groups in their messaging systems. Generally, what we're trying to do here is free up IT resources to spend more time on tasks that they would really like to do, as John alluded to earlier, but you never actually get to do them because you're spending time on laborious manual tasks. So with these products, we've seen some real successes in these areas. But those are pretty much the things I wanted to cover in this section, so I can hand you back now.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, so we're now going to move on to the Q&A session. So if you do have any questions, if you could just pop those in the questions box, which is just at the right-hand side of your screen. We should be able to answer those for you shortly. And John Ryan from VMware will also be holding a quick demo after the questions if you want to stay on and watch that. Okay, so I'll just wait a minute or so to see if you do have any questions. Okay, so I have a question here from Paul, who's asked, how well does the product handle the Microsoft hypervisor?
So I guess I'll take that one. So essentially, we've got across the three main areas that I talked about. I suppose that the automation side of things, the operation side, and the business side of things. We do have basically various different plugins for Microsoft hypervisors and Hyper-V. So on the operations side, we would have adapters that will pull in data from Hyper-V, no problem. We can also kind of go into the operating system with some of our plugins and pull out that stuff. From the orchestration side of things, we can actually we can basically put System Center or some sort of management system like that as an endpoint for vRealize automation, and we can sit that on top of, or sorry, underneath. We can basically have that Hyper-V or System Center as basically an endpoint that we can go and call virtual machine tasks from. So we don't really specify, what virtual machine has to be called or anything like that. In our blueprints or in our templates, we can specify what the technology endpoint is, what the customizations to that type of VM are, and basically leverage that endpoint, in the same way as we would call out to, for example, Amazon Web Services or call out to vCloud Air. It doesn't necessarily have to be a vCenter or vCloud Director environment that we're calling into to make those customizations or to make those calls.
Okay, thank you, John. So William has just asked if we're going to be publishing the recording. So yes, so I'll send you all a link to the recording shortly after the webinar today. So I'll just wait to see if we have any more questions, and if not, then we will pass back to John for the demo. Okay, so I think that's it for today. So obviously, if you do have any questions you want to ask outside the webinar, just you can email us on tellmemore@bytes.co.uk. Also, once you leave the webinar, if you could fill the critique form, that'd be really useful for us. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining, and I'm now going to pass you all over to John. Sorry, John, for the demo.
Okay. So just give me 1 second and hopefully you'll be able to see my screen. I'll just move this in here. So here we go. Okay. So hopefully you can see this. So again, guys, this is just a kind of a demo environment again. So this is in my browser, and it's kind of these are demos that you can kind of download from online. But really, I guess what we're just trying to show here is what the integration across the various different tools can do. So for example, we can have our operations manager, which is the tool that we actually look at to grab all of our data in relation to our environment. We can use that tool for things like capacity planning. So in this instance, I've got a couple of different projects there that I want to check if I have the capacity to roll out. So again, this particular project is called the Phoenix project that I want to run out or roll out. You can see here that I've basically got my my various different kind of levels of infrastructure, what my demand is on my infrastructure, how that's been growing over time. So again, this is useful data to have in relation to any decision making we have around kind of projects or kind of the automation of the rollout of different projects as well. If I just click in there for a second, so if I then move on and move and add in, okay, what's the impact going to be if I actually add in these additional new 50 VMs to my capacity? I can see here that basically I'm going to kick my demand up over where I would expect my workload to be in the kind of growth period that I have. So essentially, this is a good information to have before I actually start rolling out a project, because now I can actually plan ahead and potentially bring in resources from somewhere else to actually make a better decision about this. So when I do that, then what I can actually say is, okay, I now know kind of I'm going to have a bit of shortfall if I actually want to roll out my VMs this quarter before I actually expand out my private cloud. So what I need to do is come up with an alternative. So with that, I can actually go into my automation tool, and I can actually go into my business analysis and see, okay, I'm potentially going to have to roll this out temporarily in a public cloud, okay, and bring it back in-house when I actually have the capacity. So if I wanted to do that, what I can do is basically put in place the what my requirement is. So I'm going to do this in 10 VM bundles of my 50 VMs. So if I take a look at what the requirements are for that VM, I can place those into my simulation here on the cost side of things, and I can see where would it make most sense for me to sit these VMs. So again, if I have capacity somewhere else in my own environment, it potentially would be cheaper to roll it out there. But if I don't, I also have the option to roll it out on these other cloud options, and I can see exactly what the costing might be there on a monthly basis. So what I might do then is I might actually go into my service catalog, knowing kind of I want to roll out a certain set of services. So the Phoenix project, as you can see over there on the left-hand side with the red icon, that's the set of VMs that make up the application that I want to roll out in my environment. So I can go and request the various different resources that I want. In this instance, just as an example, I could roll out a standard Linux application stack, multiple machines in one rollout, and you can see here that this is actually going to roll out onto Amazon if I wanted to roll it out. So not only do I see what I'm rolling out, not only will it roll out all the VMs required to deliver kind of the end result of an application stack, but I also see the daily cost and the least cost across the various different machines there as well. So what you'll see here is basically the if I click on any individual part of that stack, I can see that I might actually need to increase or decrease the various different capacities of those particular VMs. So for example, as part of this deployment, I actually want to up the number of VMs that I want to roll out. And then, I can see here that that's increased. So I haven't really kind of made any changes to any VM profiles, or I haven't had to go in and create multiple VMs here. All I'm doing here is adjusting the count of how many times this template is going to be rolled out. And once I have that, then I can put in place the various different lease times, or I can scroll down and allow various different things to be enabled here as well across monitoring. I can specify whether this particular VM has to be compliant with anything. And again, these options are going to be taken into account when I actually roll that virtual machine out, or they'll be taken into account, as Jonathan said, it might place some sort of security policy around these VMs using NSX technology, or could put it inside in some sort of fenced network that I've pre-configured up on my AWS instance, for example. So I can turn on monitoring to make sure that the monitoring is going to be in place for these VMs. I am also going to turn on OS monitoring, which will automatically deploy agents inside in the VMs that I'm rolling out, so that the operating systems and applications that are inside in the VMs will actually report back into my operations platform. And after that, then I can essentially move on and submit my request. So that request will go into my automation engine, and what's happening in the background now is that request is being processed and is going into is basically being rolled out. So what you'll see then is that with your operations dashboard, not only are you able to look at your existing infrastructure that's on premises, but you can also have plugins across, as I said, Microsoft instances or third-party clouds like AWS. So again, I'm going to have visibility on what am I using in the cloud right now, where is it, which VMs are consuming the most resources, etc., etc. Where are the various different hotspots? Are there any particular problems with, you know, individual parts or individual components of my my stack of on-premise or off-premise data center that I need to address? So if I look here, I can see, you know, the particular region that might have capacity to take these VMs. And you can see if I select that, basically it's going to show me all the various different dependencies between those components within my infrastructure. And you can see down here as well, you know, if there's any particular kind of resources that need to be, you know, addressed or looked at. And I can see that this particular you know, instance is having a little bit of an issue. So again, this could be a component of the application that I'm rolling out, or it could be some sort of dependency that I need to consider before you know, I actually kind of can test my application properly once it is actually rolled out. So if I click into that, I can go in and see, okay, this particular, you know, instance is having maybe, you know, issues around the storage underneath. So again, I might have to fix this performance issue before I actually have a performant and effective application rolled out on top of whichever platform I'm rolling out on top of. So I can see here, you know, the utilization of particular volumes can be quite high. So again, if I want to get a little bit more detail on those, I can see, you know, basically the latency or the amount of writes that are put into a particular volume can be visualized very easily on these kind of top-end type graphs as well. And again, I'm able to get as much detail as I need to from those various different systems, and that's going to again inform my decisions across, you know, where do I place my workloads? Do I need to make changes or fixes to those underlying components to actually ensure that everything works okay? So I'm just going to go back to my automation side of things. So presumably I can go off and you know, do a fix on any one of those systems. And again, you know, if I'm looking here, you know, this is the same catalog request again that I could go in and potentially roll this out maybe on a different volume. So again, this could be an instance whereby I've rolled out the first you know, set of VMs. Sometimes with Amazon, it's known that you might not exactly get consistent performance across the VMs. You might actually have to spin up multiple instances to get the kind of performance level that you need. And the tool will actually allow you to do that quite easily as well. So again, I'm going to go down here and basically increase again that number that I put in a while ago, and going back up to my instance as well, I'm going to go down and turn on the same systems that I turned on a second ago. So again, I'm just doing a repetitive task, but instead of having to go out and spin up all of the virtual machines and configure them all and get all of the networking working, I'm just basically going in and submitting another request. So again, this kind of thing, these types of rollouts, instead of being a big, you know, a big tedious task of kind of trying to make sure all the various different wheels are in motion and all of the automation tasks are happening simultaneously, I'm just going in and I'm just basically making an internal request. You know, if the instance that I spun up the first time isn't working, I can just go in and retire that very easily. All of the teardown operations will be done very effectively there as well. So again, you know, just to take another look at and a repeat of what we said there, essentially, we've got, you know, probably again visibility on any performance issues on those VMs that we roll out. So again, it's these automation tasks are effectively simplifying the operations of your data center, but at the same time having that underlying visibility on the infrastructure is key to actually knowing what's going on. And then from a cost control perspective, of course, we're going to be able to see you know, those various different costs across across all of the infrastructure that we have. So I might just quite quickly jump into another environment just for 1 second to kind of give you an idea of what the various different cost controls look like. Let me see on these types of automation tools. So I'm just going to quickly log into this environment. Hopefully you guys will be able to see the screen here. So what I'm logging in here now is kind of on the administrative side of what you've seen. So you guys kind of saw what the self-service catalog looks like. As an administrator, I might not actually have any catalog items. So again, I'm not going to be rolling out services from here. I'm basically going to just kind of look at what I need. But I can, of course, kind of look at other people's catalogs. So if I just wanted to look at this as a dev user, for example, what a development user might see, I can see their catalog. In this instance, I don't have as many kind of external things, but I have the exact same kind of ability to go in and request various different resources, turn on different components, etc., etc. So you can see, I'll get all the various different options for rolling out my different solutions, and when I hit submit, that just gets popped into a queue, and that queue can even be governed as well. So I can have various different levels of authorization so that our IT admins, for example, can approve or deny various different requests from developers. So again, that level of control and governance is something key to actually keeping control over the resources as well. And one thing actually that I didn't show on the other screen is that, and this is again a different, slightly different environment. So I'm just going to have to log in. So what I want to show you is that we actually do give a certain level of control to the developers insofar as the life cycle of the virtual machines, because you don't want to be opening up tickets for, could you restart this virtual machine? Could you, maybe shut down the virtual machine for the weekend? All these various different tasks that, traditionally falls to IT, or, adding extra resources to the VM, we can allow the end user do a certain amount of that within the constraints that IT kind of place on the user. So for example, this is a system that the user might have. You can see here that I can allow the user to extend their lease. So by default, the user might only get a lease of 30 days. But we can get them to change the lease, extend it. You can power things on. You can actually go along and make changes to the various different CPU, the storage, and again, this is all on the user side. So giving a lot more control and automation to the end user when they actually want to submit a request or get the resources. But I suppose the interesting thing then from the administration side of things, and we touched on this briefly, apart from that integration of the operational insight and the performance of the VMs, after they've been rolled out, or even the performance of the environment before we roll out the VMs, so we can make better decisions. The cost control is very interesting here as well. So we can see the breakdown of the costs within our data center. Is most of our cost around hardware? Probably not in most cases. Licensing can make up a significant amount of the costing within data centers. And again, this is a sample data center, so again, the numbers might be way off, but you can factor in every cost, including labor, facilities, and really see the real type of cost of your environment. You can also see the breakdown of costs on an individual component level. So you can see what an average VM costs. You can see the breakdown of where those costs are across OS, RAM, CPU, etc. And then you can also see who's using those virtual machines. And any one of these reports, of course, can be drilled down into, and we can get more granular detail on, what type of licenses we're talking about. Is it support costs? If we wanted to look at maintenance, what are those maintenance costs? Are they hardware maintenance? Is it patching for OSs? Labor costs? Again, all of these can be factored in, and we can make we can edit any of these as we see fit. So again, we're going to be given a baseline of that information as well, because we have, as VMware, we actually have a database of all of these various different costings that we can pull from. So we acquired a benchmarking company a couple of years ago that essentially built a huge database of loads of different hardware vendors, what the cost of purchase of their various different hardware was at list, and then doing things like working out what's the actual kind of how will I say, the kind of the cost profile of that particular machine over time. So as that machine gets older, what's the depreciation value there, and being able to assign those different values to kind of individual components then of the data center. So again, very granular visibility on all of that. As we saw in the other example, being able to compare costs as well with the cloud is a very interesting new area that we're looking at. So being able to see, how much a VM will be to roll out in your own environment versus the cloud. We're seeing a huge interest in that across our hybrid deployments. And again, it's just another layer of visibility on the whole automation side of things. And finally, I guess, just to cover off some of those questions around, what does it work with? From an infrastructure perspective, we can actually, configure numerous different endpoints. So again, I think in this environment, I probably only have vCenter set up, but we can add in different endpoints that we basically pull, or that we go to actually do tasks for us. So for example, if I want a new VM, this system doesn't actually create the VM, it goes to vCenter and asks vCenter to create the VM. But then with that VM creation request, we also tie in things like the creation of virtual networks. We tie in, any external configuration items that need to be done as well. As Jonathan said, updating CMDBs, all of this kind of stuff as well can be done. So I'm just conscious of time as well. I just don't want to keep everybody here today. As we said, if there are any questions around any of the technology we covered today, please get in contact with the specialists in Bytes. They're going to be able to help you. We're, as we said at the start, John said, we have a very close relationship with Bytes in VMware, and we're more than happy to help with any queries that you have on any of the things that we talked about today. So with that, I'll leave it there, guys, just in the interest of time, and I'll hand back to you.
Brilliant, thanks, John. Yep, so as mentioned, if you do want any more information, just pop that in the critique form at the end, and one of our Bytes specialists will get back to you. So that's the end of the webinar today. So thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, John and Jonathan, for presenting today. So that's it. So enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and thanks for joining.